Hi, I'm Carol Hudler. I'm the CEO of Cumberland Region Tomorrow, and thank you for having me. I thought we are not all that well known in Davidson County, so I thought we would start out talk a little bit about who we are and what we do. We're a leading nonprofit for regional collaboration. We consider ourselves a resource, a partner, and an advocate for quality growth. We identify about 6 areas that we serve 10 counties in Middle Tennessee, including Davidson County, and then the 8 counties that touch it, and then Murray as well. And there's 6 areas of regional that each county has a concern with. And we work with them on those areas. And they're all related to growth, because that's what we try to do, is help people plan for a better quality of life when growth happens. And our background is that we were started by Vanderbilt and a group of leaders 17 years ago when they saw what this area was going to do in terms of growth. And we were one of the first in the country to create a scenario plan and an alternative case for growth. So Jim Cooper kind of calls us the Not Atlanta group, and it's probably not a catchy name, but people kind of get it. Okay, so and the 6 areas are sustainable development and land use, air and water quality, open space conservation, effective transportation and transit, efficient infrastructure, and economic vitality. And I would say that at least 4 of those 6 tie directly to health and health equity. And we're a small organization, so we really focus on partnering with an organization to make things happen. We're a platform for collaboration and action on key issues that affect a local community in any of the 10 county areas. And we do that, again, by being a resource or a partner and an advocate. And I say, as a resource, we have some primary and some secondary land use research that we use to train or assist local governments and nonprofits. We assist policymakers and citizens with planning toolkits and workshops, and we've helped most governments. Davidson County doesn't need as much help as some of the other counties, but we help most governments put together the first comprehensive plan. And we partner with organizations to get public input and to provide education on important issues and initiatives. Our current key partnership is with the Transit Alliance of Middle Tennessee and the Regional Transportation Authority. And that is on the N-Motion Plan, which is the strategic plan for the 10 county area, of which the Let's Move Nashville Plan overlays onto. And an advocate is probably where we've taken the biggest impact recently. I say recently, probably the last 7 years. And that is through the annual Power of 10. It's been serving as a platform for action and regional action since it began in 2008. And it really helped springboard a lot of the first regional efforts that ever took place, such as the Mayor's Caucus and things like that. It all came from ideas that were discussed and decided on at the Power of 10 conference. So we've partnered with a lot of environmental, economic development, and governmental organizations on all sorts of planning groups. And we have a strong database of citizens in each of our counties across the region who care about preserving quality of life and what they need to do in order to preserve it. And we really focus on preserving action, making action happen. Probably our most well-known channel is for activating key community initiatives in the Power of 10 Summit. And at the summit, we bring in top speakers from other parts of the country or the world to share their experiences in areas that we'd like to do more with. I like to think of it as a leadership mission like the Chamber does, except you don't have to go anywhere. We bring them here. And so we get a much wider audience and a much more diverse audience of people at all levels that you need to make things happen, as opposed to just a select few that you could send. In your handout, you'll see pictures that Last year's, for instance, we had Mitchell J. Silver, who is the New York City Parks Commissioner. He was one of our keynote speakers, and he talked about the Bloomberg's health equity campaign to bring, and it was highly exciting. And I'll be honest with you, I'm going off script a little bit, but I was really wishing I had more of Davidson County there. And that's kind of what gave me the idea to make this plea today is that I know it costs to go to this thing, but I really think if we're going to bring some of these world-class speakers with world-class solutions, Davidson County is by far stands the most to benefit from those speakers and those ideas, because it's Davidson County private and businesses and funders and foundations that are there. And if we can get a bigger group from the Metro Davidson and some of the volunteers and the NGOs that you work with at the same time, I think we can make things happen. And that is basically it. So last year we had Mitchell J. Silver talking about parks and health equity, and we also had the head of CMAP, which is the Chicago Regional Area of Planning, which was also very relevant because the MPO and GNRC were integrating at the time, and that is more of the same organization that they were attempting to become. So we really try to go with something very relevant for the time. In addition to best practices from other places, we do bring in mayors. We listen to concerns from our leaders, both elected leaders and business leaders, and we really work to build a passionate discussion about how to build a better community. And it's the power of convening everybody together at that time is really important, because if you know what you want to do after that, then you've got everybody inspired by these speakers, and they're all together, and they say, we got to do something. And you'd really have a hard time doing that in committee meetings or volunteer groups or anything like that. But when you bring them all together, and they've spent the day together, and they've been inspired and emboldened, and they have all the networks that they need right there at each other, magic happens. And so this is a simple proposal. We are asking for money to help bring in Ryan Gravel. How many people are familiar with Ryan Gravel? He was the creator of what is now known as the Atlanta Beltline, and it is a 22-mile inner city loop that was at one time a railroad bed that is being built into bike and walkways in Atlanta, and it's really transformed big parts of Atlanta and in some very powerful ways. And through that I used to go to Atlanta a lot of times, and there were areas that I really didn't even drive through, and now are very popular areas to walk and bike and that type of thing. It's really an exciting thing. And I don't think most of us go to Atlanta very often anymore because it's too close almost. But I think it's a really good example. And he is he's an author, he's a design, an engineer. I think he did this as a thesis for his doctorate or something like that, but that it's become a reality. And I've got in your packet, I've got a article from about a year and a half ago that the New York Times has written about it, but it's had quite a bit of stuff. He's now a TED Talk speaker, and it really transformed Atlanta. And it talks about how much smaller of an investment that was than the whole big Olympics. Okay, think about the investment they made in the Olympics, but this was much smaller, and I can tell you, in terms of equity and in terms of health, it's a much greater impact. And I think he can show that. Now, he's an interesting character, and we may be able to get him or not. He recently, and if you look him up, he recently quit the fundraising arm of the Beltline because he didn't agree with how much was being spent on affordable housing. He didn't think it was enough. But and then there is an issue with, I think he can speak to the power of greenways and health equity and health access, and how that can transform neighborhoods. But he also can speak to the importance of affordable housing and some other areas like that. He is a author of a book called Where We Want to Live, Reclaiming Infrastructure for a New Generation of Cities. And I think it's really important because, most of us think of Atlanta as just no place to get out of a car. And I think he came back after spending time in Europe and saw his home city and said, I've got to do something. And that's basically the start of his speech, is how different it is and how much weight he lost when he was living in Europe and that type of thing. Anyway, so we ensure wide and deep participation. So the summit is at the Music City Center, and it includes lunch for everybody. We have accredited programs, so planners get accreditations, architects get accreditations, and we would just propose that Metro invest in providing scholarships. We typically will let the mayors in free, but everybody else has to pay. So, and we charge retail, we charge $100 per person, but what we are proposing is that you help us get the speaker, which would be, we think, I'm hoping he'll do it for $5,000, and plus a little travel, and then we would do basically 60 people at cost, and our cost is really the cost of AV and the Music City Center and that type of thing. So we're asking for about $11,000. And I think to make this work and to make sure that this does what I'm promising to do, which is inspire action and that type of thing, is we need to work with you and the Parks Department and say, okay, let's take these plan to play goals. Because, when I looked at it, I said, what kind of goals can we really help with? Or what goals should we set? And I realized, we're in the planning business. Davidson County has plenty of plans. We have plenty of very stated goals. It's just a matter of being able to put those goals to action, to really accelerate them. And I think that's what we can do. So, we propose taking 3 existing recommendations or goals from the Plan to Play book, preferably those related to the prioritizing the parkland, greenway expansion, and the expanding the number of smaller parks like the pocket parks and the neighborhood parks. And I picked those 3 because they're probably harder to do. It's easier to get a land given to you, and there's some kind of conservation or something like that. It's almost even easier to get facilities allocated to a park that's already existing. But to get little additional pocket parks, and if we looked at the gaps, a lot of the health equity is there's just not enough parks in the places that there needs to be. So those are the kinds of things that I think are harder goals, but that's where you probably would want to focus on. But it's really up to the Metro and what they would want to do. So we would determine like 2 or 3 goals in advance of this and basically create a structure where everybody is there, but then we have a chance to have a conversation at the conference itself. We can either have a separate set aside or just to have an incredible follow-up plan, and basically work with the people that want to volunteer to make this thing happen. And we see that as those having the closest ties to the health equity. The budget's simple. I'm on page 11. I'm on the proposed budget one, okay, which is the professional fees are really, it's just what we think we'll have to get Brian for. The occupancy registration is what we would charge per that's for 60 people. And conference, that's Ryan's hotel room. Okay, so totally is about $11,000. And it helps offset a cost. Now, we will do a summit anyway. I don't know if we could afford a Ryan. We might be able to get somebody else that talks about the Beltway or something like that. But I really would love, I see this as solving several things, to get the top speaker that we really think is really relevant, but also to get the kind of Davidson participation that will have its benefit and have lasting benefit and help activate some of the goals. So in summary, it's to improve health equity in Nashville. We think we must improve the built environment. We think we have an opportunity to do that by the plan to play recommendations support that more equitable access to healthy lifestyles. We didn't think we needed to come up with new goals, but to help those. The execution of the plan to play goals require that public-private partnerships that are hard to pull together at, in individual separate meetings. The Power of 10 can provide that education and inspiration and advocacy for action. And the $11,000 investment helps that, but it also helps educate a lot of people that you need to educate on ideas and to motivate them. So it's a simple proposal. And I'm really mad that I didn't bring my PowerPoint, but I can send it, so, and I have a copy of it. So